Welcome, guys, back to the I Love Wrestling podcast. I'm your host, as always, Justin Woolwine. Today, we are welcome with one of the many voices of Chicago style wrestling, Mr. Steve Ahrendt. How we doing,
Hey, you
man?
got it.
I did. I was really concentrating on that
Nailed
last
it.
name.
I feel like I've been watching your stuff and I feel like I'm kind of sitting in a place where Rhino sat pretty recently. How
Yes.
can you pull an interview like that? I've been doing this 13 years. Nobody like that sits down with me. What are you, magic?
Uh, what I've been told is the passion and love for this, like that's what it's called. It's the I Love Wrestling podcast. It's true. So it's resonated, and that's something I just take pride in, I guess. But the love for this business has got me the guests that I've been able to get. And
Well,
so
you got a hell of a brand and it's a hell of a thing. So I'm glad to be a part of it.
thank you. I love the compliment. I usually hate taking compliments, but I'll accept them today. Thank you so much.
That's why I'm here. That's
Um,
why I'm here.
Before we get started into your wrestling career, wrestling journey, whatever we want to call it, is there any social medias, upcoming promotions that you'll be commentating and doing things like that at that you want to shout
Oh my goodness. I don't know if you want to open that Pandora's box. There's a lot. I'm,
out?
with social media, I'm, on Instagram and I'm on Facebook. We have our YouTube channel, our YouTube page thingy. So, I'm on a few places. I'm pretty easy to find. As far as places I'm working at, I work a little bit of everywhere.
Okay.
This Saturday night, in Homewood, I'll be doing Chicago Knockouts roller derby commentary. Next Saturday, Rocket Pro presents Spring Break in Joliet. I'll be there. Obviously, CSW is coming up. Then the Knockouts do another show in April. Then I go to Wisconsin for Frontline Pro. If you haven't heard of Frontline Pro, you're kind of sleeping a little bit at the wheel. That is a promotion that they're doing amazing things there. But, I'm blessed to work in all sorts of places. And I've got NWA coming up again on May 2nd. So it's a whirlwind, man. It's a whirlwind.
It definitely is. This world of professional wrestling never stops. And I've noticed the more doors you open, the more doors you find.
If you are an agreeable human being, if you go to a place to work and you work hard and you're a good person and you do the right thing, the word gets around and you'll get opportunities everywhere. I mean, I started in this business kind of by accident a long while ago, and here almost 13 years later, I don't have a weekend off anymore. It sure pisses my wife off. I'll tell you that.
I always start here on the podcast. We are the I Love Wrestling podcast. So, Steve, when did you find wrestling and what made you fall in love with it?
That's a great question. I've asked that one many times myself. I'm going to give you a couple of different answers here.
Okay.
Rock and Wrestling Connection back in 1984, 85. MTV was huge when I was in my teens because it just started. I was 11 when 1981 happened and when MTV kicked off. And, as soon as we got it's an obsession because you've never seen anything like it. Then all of a sudden, Cyndi Lauper comes she-bopping around, and next thing you know, she's got Captain Lou Albano, and then all of a sudden, it's Moolah, and it just kept going, and then Hulk Hogan and Mr. T get involved. So you're like, what is this madness? And that's kind of when I took the first bite of the apple. I remember WrestleMania 1 like it was yesterday. And then, I was a casual fan of it for a little while, but by the time WrestleMania 2 uh, got here, they were doing it in three cities, so it's simulcast in Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York. And we had to beg our parents to pay, I think it was like $75 on pay-per-view, which it seems ridiculous now, but that's what it was back then. And to watch everything happening city to city, I was hooked then, and I've been a fan of it ever since. So it was a great beginning, and it just kind of, has leveled up. Now, when did I start working in this business? Was back in 2014. I went to broadcasting school to become the next great sports drive DJ. I was going to own the score. I was going to own ESPN. Jonathan Hood, move over. I'm coming after you. But that never matriculated because in the radio business, it's even more difficult to crack than wrestling. It really is who you know. And nepotism is a real thing in the radio media arena. So unless you're prepared to pick up and move to South Dakota and work for $8,000 a year hosting overnight, it's hard to break into the radio business. But I got someone told me to go do a wrestling show, and I'm like, well, I could probably do that. I've listened to JR scream at Jerry Lawler for enough years. I could probably do that. So my first wrestling show was at a company called PCW back in 2014. It was called Grave Matters. It featured the Nasty Boys. So I'm there with the Nasty Boys, and it is pretty fun. And all I did was JR shtick for 3 hours. He's got a family. Everything was going off the top of the cage into the broadcast table. I was so over the top because I didn't know any better. I just thought that's what they wanted. Turns out that's what they wanted because I haven't looked back.
That's amazing. So it was just by chance. You just was, you know, going into broadcasting for
That's
something
it.
completely different, and it kind of fell up in your lap.
Yeah, I was going through a midlife crisis. I was in my mid 40s, and I had my regular job that I'd been doing for many years. And I'm like, I want something different. So I talked my wife into letting me go to broadcasting school. And one of the broadcasting school things was they would go do things, for, experience. So some guys would go do ice hockey somewhere. Some guys would do arena football, to get that practice. Minor league baseball was big. So I was doing some of those things as well. And the program director at the school said, listen, we had a cancellation night. One of our guys is sick. Do you know pro wrestling? And I'm like, well, yeah, I know pro wrestling. Sure. It's like, can you do commentary? I'm like, well, I've never done it, but I've watched it enough. I think I understand it enough to maybe be passable for a night. So they said, all right, you go do this. So I showed up, and they gave me a sheet, and they said, just do the best you can. So all I did was Jim Ross for 3 hours, and here we are.
Huh. How long did you work with them before you started like branching out into other companies trying to work for different promotions?
That is also hilarious. I worked for PCW for 2 months because uh, 2 months later, the wrestling company closed. So, in wrestling, promotions certainly aren't forever. The shelf life on some of them that I've been a part of has been very rapid. So I worked at PCW. Then, I was like, okay, well, that's the end of wrestling for me. I didn't think I would get another crack at it. And I was like, I liked it enough. So I'm like, well, I'd love to keep doing this if I could. Well, then another company that a lot of the people from PCW went to work for, they called me up and said, hey, do you want to do this? And that was a company called Crash Tested Wrestling. And I worked with them for a few years. I got to work with some great people, James Storm, Ron Simmons. We had Animal from the Road Warriors, Heidenreich. It was Heidenreich and Animal. They were the Road Warriors. It was during that era. Billy Gunn, Diamond Dallas Page. These are all guests we had. MVP versus El Patron was a match at one of our big events. So I started to get experience, and people started to say, "Hey, this guy maybe can do it." So I was there for a couple of years. Then it closed. Then I went to another company called GPW, and I ran there for a while. And now they said, "Well, your commentary is great, but we want you to do something else." So they made me general manager. So now I'm an on-screen character. And then I got in the ring. I started doing things in the ring here and there, and got my ass kicked more than once. And then that company closed. And a lot of the people that worked at GPW were also working at CSW, including Steve Boz. So Steve Boz and TJ Steele were the Bruise Brothers. They still are. They said, you know what? Now that GPW is gone, why don't you come up with us, and we'll make you our general manager. So in the January of 2020, at the start of their season, I became the general manager of Chicago Style Wrestling, and then 2 months later, COVID hits. So my wrestling journey has been one of many stops and many starts.
So I want to go back to you being in the ring. How like did that conversation start for you to jump in the ring and actually get into a match?
Okay, so my first in-ring situation was as general manager, and there was a traveling superstar called the Princess of Darkness, Casey Dillon. Now,
Mhm.
Casey's not wrestling anymore, but for a while she was pretty big traveling the indies, and she's a giant person. And she was trying to take over the women's division at GPW, and I called her out, got in the ring, got in her face, and she chokeslammed me. Now, looking back at that choke slam, it was the worst choke slam in history. It was the sloppiest, flopping mess of a thing. But that was my first in-ring thing, and they liked it enough where they're like, okay, let's do this. So suddenly I became evil and they made me a heel. So now I'm getting my ass kicked, but now I'm kicking some ass too. And then it ended up in me having some matches here and there. The first actual match I had was against a wrestler called Metalhead. And Metalhead and I had a match as a main theme for my son's seventh birthday. So all of his friends were there, relatives were there, and here's this 40-year-old fool coming out to Real American by Hulk Hogan and ripping his shirt off to a standing room only crowd. And I'm like, this is just impossible. This can't happen. And, it was a match. I mean, I did some European uppercuts, a few splashes, a few chops. I do some things in the ring, not a great many things because I'm more of a gimmick wrestler than an actual seasoned performer. But, I can hang in a match, and I do matches every now and again when stories call for it.
Okay. What like kind of training have you had as far as wrestling goes?
I have been trained by some really great people that have been in this business a long time. The first person to ever train me was a wrestler named Mitch Blake, who is one half of the Rage. Now, he has since stopped doing it, but for a long time, I went to the GPW school and, I would hang out there and I would pick up things there and they would put me through drills. So I got to be pretty good at doing certain things. But, being a bigger guy and an older guy, there's only so much I can do. When GPW went away and he went away, I went to Southland Championship Wrestling School with Hunter Payne. And Hunter Payne whipped my ass on a regular basis. The man has hands as big as frying pans, and he's not afraid to use them. But I learned a lot from him. I learned different things from different people, but probably the guy I learned the most from is the real deal Rion Skills, who was a PCW champion, is information liaison for IPW Wrestling, works at Rocket Pro. He's been in the business well over 25 years. And I learned chain wrestling and the art of working a crowd. So I've had three really significant influences that all gave me a little something different. So I have a pretty well-rounded perspective. So it's pretty cool.
What was it like for you to like actually gain some championship gold?
Wow, I have had a little bit of gold over the years in various places. At GPW, I was the Battle Royal champion, which was a title that was defended monthly. It did not last very long, but that was just to have a belt that you won is kind of a surreal thing. And then at IPW, I had the what's it called, the alternative champion, or it was something like that.
Yeah, the alternative, I think, is what it was called.
Yeah, so I was the champion there for a hot minute, and I was a trios champion as well. It's for me. I'm not gonna. I don't want to break the kayfabe, but I kind of have to. Being a commentator and being someone that's done bookings and being someone that's written storylines and stuff, you love the championship belts. You love what they are, the pursuit for the title, but in the grand scheme of things, they are very ornamental. So I think, a lot of people put way too much stock in the belt itself. The most important thing is the story.
Yeah, would
Why
you
do
agree
we
with me?
care? Why do we care about this fool with the belt? Which is what makes why everybody is so engaged with Cody Rhodes and John Cena right now. The belt is there. It's on his shoulder every time he's out there, but you're not really looking at the belt.
No, you're
You're
not worried
you're
about
looking
that.
at you're looking at the backstories as they are ripping each other, and you're trying to figure out what point in time they're talking about. So, it's great that the WWE title is the prize at WrestleMania, but it's the stories they're telling that makes me want to watch. So belts are great, but I'd rather be in a great story. Last year, over the last couple of years at Rocket Pro Wrestling, I was involved in kind of an in-ring thing with a wrestler known as the Villain, Joey Roth. And he's
Mhm.
been doing it for POW and Squared Circle Megastars for a long time. He's a really beloved character or a hated character, depending on which Joey you get. So I was involved in a tag team thing with him and his wife, Roxy Hart, and my broadcast partner at Rocket Pro, Shelly. So we did some intergender tag things and, not the greatest technical matches in the world, but the fans love the story. So, like I said, belts are great, but the story's better.
Okay. How do you think, or what's it like for a company to try to balance that, the pursuit for a title while maintaining a story between two people?
I think that that's a great question. Um, the story between the characters in the match should dictate why they care about the belt. And at this point, let's go back to Cody and John, since everybody knows about that. So John's pursuit is to get his 17th title. Cody is still looking for that respect. He's the man now. You're old, I'm now. So the story between them, it's really, really interesting. So I like it when, someone goes after a title for a reason. I'm trying to think of a good storyline. At CSW, when the Warhorse, Jake Parnell, took over the Hate Keepers and he became Commissar and the Nihilist and what he's doing now, and he butted heads with Conan Lycan. And whatever Conan Lycan was doing on the card for months, the Hate Keepers would show up and attack him. And he was a member of the Hate Keepers. He was their leader until Warhorse came along. And then Warhorse gets the championship. So now Warhorse is your championship, but Lycan is still pissed off that he took his friends, he took his family, and now Lycan is following Warhorse around. And that ended in a steel cage. So the road from where they started to where that title change happened, that was really cool and it was really well done. And if you've ever seen that match between Warhorse and Lycan in the steel cage, that
Phenomenal.
is really some splendid storytelling going on in that ring.
You know what's insane is that was my first ever, excuse me, CSW show. I had actual
That's a
Rico.
great one to start with. That's a great
It,
one to start with.
it really was, and it hooked me instantly. And it was one of those. I had Axel Rico one. Rico invited me. He said, "Look, come to CSW, check out what we got. Maybe if you want some pointers on who to maybe talk to or where to go from here, I'll help you." And I go. We're watching the show. I didn't talk to nobody really to start. I was like, "Let me watch the product, soak it in." I'm sure the boys are and girls are all watching, trying to pay attention, trying to see what's going on. I'm not going to bother nobody, but watching that show, the crowd was so into it. And I think that's what hooked me was how intense the crowd is.
Yeah.
And the action's great, but the crowd makes it so much better. And I hadn't been to an indie here in Chicago that had that feel yet. And then that cage match happened, and like you get all the moving parts, all the interference, but the story captivated me, and I was like, okay, now I got to see why this moment was so important.
Aha, that's exactly it. You just
Exactly.
answered your own question right there. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And you just can't put a price tag on Lycan throwing Boucher into the third row from inside the steel
He was
cage.
2 feet from Boucher when he hit like he goes through all the chairs.
You
He
were right
literally like
there.
landed at our feet, and I was like, "Oh my! I've never seen that before." Somebody get
Yeah.
lawn darted out of a cage into the third row is you don't see that
We say it's just another shy style Friday night.
for real, and it's like that every month. Every month it gets. It's like, how can we raise the bar this month? How can we raise the bar this month? And how like as somebody that's involved with it, how do you guys go about that process of saying, "Hey, how do we top the last show?"
That is another great question, and I kind of feel like a lot of people sleep on CSW, especially what they're doing now. I have been at CSW for a long time. I have watched it change over the years, and right now it's the best it's ever been. And there might be some of the old guard that say, "Well, no, it's not as good as the old days." It's better than the old days. At one point, CSW was where everybody from Windy City went. So there were years where they had when you only had 3 or 4 promotions working in the Midwest. They would have huge crowds on a Saturday night at schools, and I'm sure that was great. But all the eyes that are on CSW right now with the internet and IWTV. I was just looking at the YouTube channel the other day, kind of because they're giving out free matches now every once in a while. And I like to go back and revisit them. I mean, obviously now that Maggie is part of TNA, when they brought that Maggie Workhorse match, or not Workhorse, Warhorse, I wanted to watch it again, kind of run it back. I don't really like to watch them back too much. I don't like to listen to myself uh, do it again because I'm very critical of what I do. But there are just sometimes where it's a big match, and we knew Maggie was getting ready to leave, so I wanted to see how that final match, because when somebody leaves their last match, you're either going to get them giving their 100% all because they know that they want to give the audience something special, or they phone it in and the match sucks. Well, Maggie, to her credit, gave her
Tore
all
it
and
down.
then some. And, Warhorse is one of the top 100 guys working in the business, period. I don't care if you're on TV, you're in Germany, I don't care where you are. That man laces up his boots, and there aren't 100 guys better than him out there at telling stories, at working, at just being an extraordinary character. The fact that we have Commissar every month is a joy because you're going to see something special.
I want to touch on Maggie, but first you brought up Warhorse. He's another unicorn of this business because, like, I remember Warhorse with the face paint, the Slim Jim,
Slim Jims, yep.
and then like that's what I came to the first CSW like, hey, I gotta see Warhorse. Like I've never seen him before in person. I've watched all his stuff. I've seen him on Dynamite, and then I get there and it's a completely different human being. What was it like watching that transition into the Warhorse we know now?
We never saw it coming because we did not know. First of all, when he was Warhorse, the face paint, he was a special guest every now and again. Then he wanted to do his new character, and the powers that be were into it because they knew how good Jake was. And, I'm sure not everybody wanted the nihilist at first because, like, no, we're paying you because they want to see the Slim Jims and the streamers and the red and the face paint, and they want you to be the indie Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah.
Well, that's not what he wanted anymore. He wanted to go deeper and bring something out of himself that he hadn't done yet. And I think CSW was a great place because that's where that character developed and was born, and it's been growing ever since. And now, I work with Jake a couple of places now. He's also at Frontline on the regular now. And the fact that I get to call matches for him twice a month and watch his matches from my position 2 times a month, it's one of the great joys in this business for me, because when I'm done and I'm sitting in the old folks chair, rocking back and forth on a porch somewhere, I'm going to remember these moments working with this guy who is inevitably going to end up somewhere on TV a couple of times a week. It's impossible to believe that he is not going to be signed. Impossible.
100%. Especially, I mean, if we're just going off look alone, he looks like, I mean, you put him and Cody Rhodes next to each other, and that could main event any show, anywhere.
And I can't stress enough how good he is as a dance partner in the ring. And you watch his matches, he can fight the likes of Conan Lycan and Marche Rocket and be the badass that he is. But then at Frontline Pro, he had a match with Sierra. Now, Sierra, to me, does not get the flowers she deserves. She has been doing this a long time, and to me is one of the most talented women I have ever seen. And I've seen some pretty good ones. I've worked with Megan Bain. I worked with Sky Blue. I've seen some really pretty good, talented people, but there's just something different about Sierra. And the fact that she isn't somewhere, doing stuff on television is crazy to me because she is that good. Her and Avalon traveling 10,000 miles a year, working every weekend as a unit, is one of the great stories of professional wrestling. But watching Jake in a match with her at Frontline and how great it was, and he made her look like $1 billion. Now she looks like $1 million whenever she fights. So it's not hard to have a great match with Sierra, but intergender wrestling is very tricky. And you can either give too much or too little and it will look uneven. As you can see with Maggie, You had no idea who was going to win that match.
No.
You had no idea the whole time. It could have gone either way. That's the genius of who he is. Same thing with Sear up at Frontline. The genius is he works the people he works with so well that you believe everything he's selling. And that's the little moniker of wrestling. It always has ABS, always be selling. That's Jake Parnell in a nutshell.
Jumping back to Maggie, recently she did get announced that she was signed with TNA.
Hmm?
What was your guys' reaction when you found out that somebody, that's gone through the CSW system is now going to make it to that level?
Well, we love it. I mean, it's bittersweet. I mean, admittedly, you're going to miss having her on the regular. TNA, I think she'll be back periodically when she can. I know she has an affinity for CSW as she should. I'm sure she's going to be back at Dreamwave. I mean, between Dreamwave and CSW, she has punched her ticket. Um, but you're happy. You're thrilled when someone becomes a star and successful. That lets you know that it's real and can happen. I mean, I have to believe that all the boys and girls in the locker room are like, we've known Maggie for years. If she can do it, so can we. So it's thrilling for everybody around her, but it's a little sad to know that it's not going to be monthly. We had the same thing when Sky got signed on AEW because she had been such a fixture at CSW for so long, and she was a driving force during the pandemic. And when we came back, her match with Kylie Ray, people still talk about it. So when Sky went to AEW, we were thrilled for her because she wanted it so badly, but we were sad because we were going to miss her. But she comes back every now and again. And who will ever forget that night that Sky Blue was supposed to fight Missa Kate, and Missa Kate couldn't make it? So who walks out of the back is Kyle Fletcher. And Kyle says, we might be romantic on the outside, but if you need someone to fight, I'll fight you right now. And she said, yes. So it's Kyle Fletcher and Sky Blue in the ring. And Kyle says, well, wait a minute. I'm not going to do this unless you let me name my own referee. And Sky's like, you can have whoever you want as the referee. And he points to the curtain. And who walks through that curtain? Will Ospreay. So in that ring on a Friday night, unannounced, you have Sky Blue versus Kyle Fletcher being officiated by Will Ospreay. If that's not the craziest shit you've ever heard in your life,
Can't write
imagine
it.
not knowing it was going to happen and being on commentary. I almost had a coronary.
See, and I think that's the thing that makes CSW special is because even when those unexpected things happen, it comes back even better. And like
Yeah.
that's when a lot of places, I mean, even without like not professional wrestling in general, that's when the monkey wrench gets thrown in, that's when a lot of places fold. But CSW under pressure is even better than CSW without the pressure. And I think that's the magic of it.
The magic of CSW, I can sum up in, let's see, 5 letters: HADES. That's the magic of CSW. That's Hades. For those of you trying to spell it out at home, Hades is the straw that stirs CSW's drink. The excellence that has come from it, especially of late, comes from the gallows of the mind of that brilliant human being. It takes a village. We have the best production, I think, out there of just about anybody. We have great crew. We have great roster, but unless you have a great leader that you believe in and will follow anywhere and will do anything for, you have very little, and those are the companies that usually end up folding. It's a lack of leadership. When the inmates start running the asylum, that's when things get bad in companies. And believe me, I've been an inmate in an asylum before, so it's a strange situation. Solid leadership is where it's at, and the places that I work at Frontline has been solid leadership. One of the best minds I've ever seen. At Rocket Pro Wrestling, the Shelleys, they are in love with their fan base and what they do. That's why it's 500 people every first Saturday in the month in Joliet. And it's the most ridiculous thing, but the crowd there loves their characters. And then at CSW with Hades, it starts at the top And if you believe in what the top is doing, your soldiers will follow you anywhere. And that's really true.
One thing at like the last CSW show that really stuck out to me, going back to the crowd, was it was packed from door to door. You couldn't fit another human being in there. And I talked to Hades about this when I had him on the podcast. Um, and I asked him, like, is getting into a bigger venue something that's being explored? Because I know in December, you guys were at Elmwood Park,
Mhm.
phenomenal venue, also packed door to door, side to side, like you couldn't fit nobody else in there. Is that something that you think we could anticipate more of at CSW?
Well, that's fun that you mentioned that because December was a bit of a surprise to all of us. I mean, the American Legion Hall on Pacific Avenue in Franklin Park has been CSW's home for a while now, and they take great care of us. They are really great people to work with because they believe in us and they love us. And what they ask from us to be there, uh, many other places would want way more. So we have a great amount of loyalty to the Franklin Park building. And but lately, the shows have been getting, bumper to bumper, and we don't want the police to be called or the fire department to be called because we've got too many people in the building. It's a nice problem to have. You mentioned Elmwood Park. When we went to Elmwood Park in December, our worry was, well, we packed Franklin Park. Can we pack a venue this size, which is significantly but so I'm on commentary. If you listen to that show about 10 times during the broadcast, I'm looking at the doors going, I can't believe there are still people filing in. Up until like the fourth match, there
Yes.
were still people coming in. I'm like, where are they coming from? What is happening right now? So we like Elmwood Park a lot. So much so that in May at the season finale, we will be back in Elmwood Park. So April, Tears in the Rain, we are going to be in Franklin Park as normal. But then in May, and it's one of our biggest shows of the year because that's the season finale. Because we start in or the mid I'm sorry, it's the mid-season finale.
Okay.
So because they don't usually run in June and then we're back in July. So there's a lot of crazy stuff that happens at the May show. And now a lot of crazy stuff is going to happen in Elmwood Park. And that is just I can't wait to see what happens, especially with the people that we're having there. Kalisto, uh uh Tommy Dreamer, uh
Dijak?
huh?
Is
Yeah,
Dijak?
Dijak is going to be there. So, those are three heavy hitters. I mean,
Yes.
Dreamer, everybody loves Dreamer. I mean, Dreamer's a legend, and we've worked with him before. He's great. And Kalisto started at CSW. He
Great.
had a different name, but he's a CSW OG. So, you love him. And now Dijak, fresh off of his tour of NXT. So, there's a lot of reason to go to that show and see what's cooking there. But I imagine it's going to be every bit of December, if not more, because the weather's going to be much nicer.
You brought up earlier that you were GM, or you still currently are GM of CSW,
Well,
correct?
my GM story, I was GM for many years, and
Okay.
then I got involved in a situation with TJ Steele and the Brass,
Got you.
and my general managership hinged on Steve Boz beating TJ Steele one-on-one, and I was the special guest referee. Well, things didn't go very well. I lost and was out of the job and was fired from CSW, but TJ brought me back and said, you can sit at the commentary desk and flap your gums, but that's all you're doing now. So then for a year, I was just the commentator, not the general manager. But in November, we decided to have a little election and we had a debate, and that went on for a while. And then the crowd voted online and both at the venue and online, and I won my general manager job back. But all of a sudden now the made men have arrived, and I have been kind of pushed out as controlling authority, at least for now. But best believe the general manager, Steve, uh, ain't nobody gonna tell me how to live. So they're running amok right now, but the amok running will be curbed down pretty soon. I'm gonna get out there and I'm gonna put the authoritative foot down, as it were.
Okay. With that said, what do you think of the recent turn of Marche Rocket, Steve Boz, and like what kind of role do you think TJ Steele could play with them?
Okay, so that's a fine question, and I will answer this. and I'll try to broaden the spectrum for you.
Okay.
What is it about 2025 where all the old wrestlers decide to say, you haven't supported me enough. You haven't given me title opportunities enough. Now I'm going to take it and I'm going to be an ass about it. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, everybody wants to go, you can't see me.
Everybody.
It's like a John Cena bandwagon out there. So all day Marche Rocket has jumped on the victim cookies bandwagon. And this is not my first rodeo with Marche going rogue like this. I've been down this road with Marche before in other places. So I'm well aware of what's happening. But you've got Boz, who is calling himself the godfather of Chicago wrestling. Don't let Terry Allen hear you say that, because that is going to be a hotbed of incident. When those two come back together, Terry's going to be like, "You're who?" There's a strange pecking order in the land of Chicago history, and if you don't understand the Chicago history of Windy City to now, those guys will come out of the woodwork, and it will be a thing. What do I think about the Made Men? I try not to, because they irritate the hell out of me. And now they've got Bruss, the gentleman barbarian, who I was just about to put on task for the Metro Division title because he's earned his way to the title picture. Now I'm under no obligation to do a damn thing. I'm irritated by it. And I had given Marche a title shot before he decided to drop Missa Kate on her face. So that poor girl, man.
That night was it was definitely emotional, and you could feel the
Yeah.
emotion in there. And I even felt it as somebody who is fairly new to the Chicago, to
Yeah.
the CSW scene. Like, what was going through your mind when Marche hit the cutter, Boz hit his fin? What was that like for you? And being so into it.
I turned into Jim Ross, as I do every time someone does something that I don't enjoy, because I feel like it's a personal attack on what we're trying to do.
Okay.
We had just finished the Hate Keepers. Finally, the Hate Keepers are dissolved and gone, and I finally got that albatross off of CSW. Now I have to deal with these asshats. It was very emotional because Missa Kate was about to announce something big, and they cut her off. So we have no idea what she was going to announce. Is she going away? Did she sign somewhere? Is she taking a hiatus? Did she injure herself? She was about to say something, and that we will never know what that was because of Marche and Boz. And Marche has been like a family member to her, and Boz has been like a father to her. Can you imagine what it would be like to be betrayed by two of the people that are your confidants in life in this business? She was the
Devastating.
original Chicago style wrestling female champion when that belt was created back in the days of Bishop Guerin. So Missa is an OG CSW superstar. And the fact that she was treated like that by the heart and soul, as they say, of CSW, it was crap. It was garbage. I hated it. It was uncomfortable to watch. I can't imagine you enjoyed it.
No, it was one of those things. I recently, at that point, just had Miss on. And I've been really trying to get Boz and Marche on. So like when it happened, I was like, holy, you know what? Like this is insane. And I was really centered in on like, what is she about to say? What is she about to announce? Like you said, is she getting signed? Is she hurt? Or is she going somewhere? And then to get cut off and like she's giving props to Marche and giving props to Boz and like brings up those like how Marche's like a brother and Boz is like a
Right.
father figure, and then immediately to get stabbed in the back, I was like, okay, that is absolutely insane. And then to
Cold-blooded.
follow that with, okay, now not only are we taking out Missa, but I'm gonna call out Conan Lycan, the heavyweight champion, while he's not here and take over the whole company. And I was like, oh boy, this is a lot more than I think we saw coming.
Yes, we were caught off guard, but we rally.
Yeah.
We are people of good character, and every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And tears in the rain, tears being the operative word. Somebody's going home crying. and it ain't gonna be me.
You brought up Russ, somebody who is quite impressive.
God, that dude.
What I think last conversation I had with him, he was 10 months in the business. It was maybe 2, 3 weeks ago. So for him to be so like he's just starting his career
Mhm.
and he's already in main events is incredible. What do you think about when you see somebody the caliber of a Bruce Hamilton walk in the locker room?
We have been incredibly blessed at CSW with homegrown talent being absolutely incredible. The first time I saw Bruss in the ring, I knew the first time he walked through that curtain in a pre-show match, I believe it was the Futures Royal. I'm like, my God, this guy looks like he would kill somebody. And I immediately, I fixated on him in the ring and watched him, do what he does. And I'm like, this guy's going to be an absolute superstar. He's an animal. You start when you look at Brush, you're thinking of, you're thinking of Goldberg. You're thinking of Brock Lesnar. I mean, he's an unbridled monster with more strength than a human should have. So I knew immediately Bruss was going to be something. Did I think Bruss was going to get here as fast as he did? Uh, Maybe a little bit because nobody works harder than him. Uh, and he trains and he is a student of the game. And his ceiling is limitless.
Limitless. Yeah.
Same thing can be said for Axel Rico. I remember when Axel Rico was the king of the pre-show. He was the guy that would be in the opening dark match and he would be in the Royal. And he was one of the guys at the training school that was just waiting for an opportunity. And then he got it and he ran with it. And my opinion is the Joey Avalon Axel Rico program from a few years ago started CSW on its present trajectory because the storytelling and the work in that rivalry, if you go back and watch their matches, it is a masterclass in how wrestling should be. Unfortunately, Joey isn't with us anymore, at least for the moment. Sierra and him have gone to do other things. But Axel is still there doing amazing work, and he is so good in a locker room for the young kids, and Bruss is too. So again, we've been blessed with great young talent that has become stars before our eyes. Bruss, he'll be on TV. There's no doubt about it. That with that physique and that voice and the way he commands, yeah, he'll be beating up Cody Rhodes at some point.
I think what's so special about Bruss and just like kind of peeling the curtain back a little bit is he plays that role of big man so well. You get
So
used
well.
to big men trying to be cruiserweights nowadays, and Bruss just plays that old school big man so well that you can't argue with it. It's undeniable.
Yeah. And like I said, there are people that are very aware of Bruss, even at his young station in the business. I believe he's going to be at NWA coming up in May. So, that is a stepping stone to whatever is next. I mean, you do good in Billy Corgan's eyes, that's a good thing to do because you'll be fighting some really, really impressive superstars.
With that said, bringing up Billy, what's been your experience like working with NWA Chicago?
Okay, so that is a really good question. Um, it's fascinating to me. Uh, I consider myself to be a poor ring announcer. It's not my most comfortable thing to do. So when they asked me to do it, I was like, ring announcer? I mean, okay, I've done ring announcing. I did it at Southland Championship Wrestling for a few years. So I know my way around and I know how to do it, but I never thought I was very good at it. Somehow, some way, somebody got my name and they said, "Hey, come out to the show. We're starting NWA Chicago in Highland Park, and be our ring announcer." And I'm like, "Okay, if you're sure, if there's nobody else, I thought there must nobody else be available. So okay, I'll go my luck. I'll go do it." So I go up there and I go up there in my gimmick, and they're like, no, we don't want you to wear the glasses." But that's my character, not here. Okay, took them off, put them in the pocket, and then I just straight laced the show, and next thing I know, I'm there every month. I wasn't able to be there last month because of some personal reasons. So usually when you miss an NWA show, that usually is the end. Okay, you weren't here. We're gonna move on with somebody else. The fact that they called me back and said, "Hey, can you do it again?" I was shocked, thrilled, and on May 2nd, I'll be doing ring announcing again, and hopefully not screwing it up for everybody.
Um, I got two more questions for you, and then I'll let you go.
Whatever you got,
One, you are a fellow podcaster.
I am.
How did you get involved with podcasting, and what was the evolution of the Power Hour?
That's a funny question. We're just talking about this last night on the Power Hour, as a matter of fact. It's funny. Um, I am so technologically illiterate. It should be illegal that I am allowed to navigate the world of the internet. Um, once upon a time, we did a little I got involved with a guy in Detroit on a audio podcast. We were doing something for a wrestling. I was working with a guy that I had worked with before who didn't like me very much, and I would call him out on just the dumbest things. There was a segment on we would talk about regular wrestling, like the wrestling on TV. He always had a take on WWE, and I didn't really want to talk about that. I wanted to talk about what I wanted to talk about, the indies, because that's where I was working. And he had this real problem with Daniel Bryant taking a hot dog from a fan and throwing it at the person he was fighting. And this guy went on this tangent about, did the WWE reimburse the guy for the hot dog? And I'm like, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. If you're a wrestling fan and Daniel Bryan takes your hot dog to throw at somebody,
You're not going to care.
good day for you. You're part of the shtick.
Yes.
But anyway, that's how I got started in it. And then I got fired by that guy. He's like, "I'm not working with you anymore. You're fired. Go away." So I'm like, "Well, all right, there goes my podcasting." But the guy who produced it from Detroit liked me so much that he gave me my own show called GPW Tonight. So I would talk about global professional wrestling and all the things we were doing. Then that matriculated into a show called The Gorilla Position, where I would do a show with my old commentator partner, Nick Swinky, the professor, and a character called the Macho Ghost. It was a friend of mine, Charlie, who does this imitation of the Macho Man, but pretends to be a ghost. It's ridiculous, but somehow it worked, and we had that show for a year. And then I hooked up with some people in Indiana called the LRP Network. I don't like to say those three letters because they've caused ruination in my life. But here we are. And they put me in a TV studio and gave me a show called Last Man Talking. And it was on their little streaming service that they were trying to make. So I had a podcast on TV for a hot minute. And that's when I got together with my partner, C Red, the urban sensation of the Soul Touches. So after that thing got destroyed, we said, you know what, let's do something ourselves on Zoom, because that was right around the pandemic time and we were doing it anyway. And that's how the Power Hour was born, thanks to the pandemic. It's the one good thing that came out of the pandemic for me. And we've been doing it ever since. So we're on year 5, I guess.
Year 5. What's been like your favorite part about having your own podcast and talking to guests and analyzing wrestling?
It's fun because my job on my podcast is to put over my promotions that I work for and put over the promotions my guests work for.
Hmm.
So I've had, people from all walks of wrestling on that show. So it's been really satisfying not only to be able to do it for 5 years once a week, but to have the same cast. And now we've branched out into roller derby. We have a new co-host, Cactus Rack. She's been with us for a couple of years now, and we're doing Chicago Knockouts roller derby, which I do commentary for. And if you think wrestling is crazy, you have never seen anything till you've seen women skate in a circle at 100 miles an hour crashing into each other. It's like a car crash around every turn. It's ridiculous. It's so violent. Um, but so our podcast has kind of changed, and we do all sorts of different things now. Sometimes we go to places and do it live. But it's fun. I don't, it's like a variety show more than a podcast. I mean, there are people out there, they're doing great podcasts like you. You do a really good
Thank you.
podcast. You're a professional guy. I'm just this schlub that gets on Zoom, every week, talks to people he knows, and then calls it a night. So I abdicate the podcast world to you because you're a pro. I'm just a guy that's trying to finish out that 15 minutes.
It's funny you say that because that's how I perceive myself as just a normal guy that just is just having fun talking to. wrestlers about something we love. And to try to bring I think like something I've been trying to do is just, I feel like in this podcast game, a lot of being a fan is taken out of it. Like there's always we're told you got to be a broadcaster, you got to be professional, you can't have an opinion, you gotta. And my thing is like we're all fans. It's a goofy sport where we watch men fight for a belt that doesn't hold their pants up. So like why not be fans? That's what we're here like. So that's
100%.
my whole goal is just to bring the fandom back into podcasting because I feel like it's gone.
I have uh I have never taken myself or anything I do in this business terribly seriously. If you've ever listened to a show that I call, uh, I'm essentially calling the action while doing stand-up comedy.
Okay.
I have no desire to be that guy that straight laces wrestling commentary because there are dime a dozen. I am there to be bombastic, opinionated, and to make people go, what is he going to say next? Did he just say that? Because everybody that watches wrestling knows what's going on in the ring. If I'm calling a Hurricane Rana or I'm calling a moonsault, everybody knows what it is. You don't need me to describe the water you're swimming in. You need me to react to the water you're swimming. Oh my
Uh,
God, that's cold. Oh my God, there's a boat. That's what you want. You want somebody that's describing what's going on. Like, my God, there's somebody over here bleeding. My whole thing is I want to make it entertaining to listen to. And I got a great compliment from a friend of mine was Kevin Woods, referee at CSW, right?
mhm.
He and his girlfriend Rosie Jones, who's also a ref, were at a referee training seminar with Mike Chioda, who is, of course, the legendary Mike Chioda, the head referee for many, many years for WWE. And of course, part of the training is he's showing Chioda some of his matches that he's roughed in to say, this is how I do it. And Chioda's like, my God, who's that commentator? He is hilarious. He is funny. That's fantastic. And they messaged me right away and said, hey, Chioda loves you as a commentator. Now, I've never met Chioda. I've never come into contact with him, but the fact he knew who I was and loved my shtick means the world, man. And I am not that guy that's calling power slams and lariats and all that stuff. I mess up the moves 80% of the time, but people tune in to listen to me screw it up and say, that dick doesn't know what he's doing. You're right, but you're listening.
But you love it.
I love it, and I've been given great opportunity to do it. I take seriously my responsibilities, and what they want me to do is they want me to provide entertaining commentary to their product that is unmistakable. So when I go to Rocket Pro or when I go to Frontline or go to CSW, I have one job, and that is to make the people that are sitting in the chairs next to commentary laugh all night long and have a good time. The chairs by commentary at CSW are always filled before every chair. And they come every month saying, we're sitting here, not because we like, because we can't see, but we want to hear what you have to say. It's the greatest compliment in the world.
That's great. I got one more question,
Yep.
and this is one that I've been waiting for this whole podcast.
Okay.
Who do you think belongs on the Mount Rushmore of CSW?
On the Mount Rushmore of CSW. Well, that is a great question. My God, do you have an hour? I need to make a couple of, no, I'll do it. I'll give it to you to the best of my ability.
If you want to throw in some honorable mentions, we love those two.
I will. Right now, for me, you got to put Boz up there because Boz is synonymous with CSW. I would put Marche because Marche Rocket uh, should be farther along in the wrestling business than he was ever able to do. And it's sad because there is nobody better at this sport than him. And there is nobody nicer in this business than him. So the fact that he only got a little bit of time at TNA and now he's at NWA, which is great. I really think the bigger promotions missed the boat on what he's capable of because he could do it all. So I've got Boz and I've got Marche. I'm putting Hades on there because without Hades, CSW stays at a level forever and doesn't rise like it's rising. And I think you have to acknowledge what he has done and what he means to not only the business, but to CSW. IWTV, the crew we have, the production we do. That's not happening if it's Hades. I mean, it was a standing cam at the back of a venue for a long time until Hades showed up and changed the game. So I'm putting Hades up there. Um, I almost want to say Brubaker because Brubaker was a phenomenal champion and a pillar of the business when he was on that roster. So I put him up there, I think, because of what he meant. And no one will ever forget that hardcore match between him and Vic Capri. Yeah, it's something burned into my psychology. Um, who else? That's four. I need one. No, that's four.
Four.
There's your four. That's
There's
my
four.
four. And you know what? There'll be people that'll watch this saying, "Well, you've only been around for a few years. You don't remember when the Turbos were there and Two Fingers and all these other guys." You're right, but this is my Mount Rushmore, and I could only cull it from my experience. So I don't know if this is the definitive CSW uh, Mount Rushmore, but it certainly is mine. And if I didn't pick Brubaker, I might go with Warhorse because Warhorse has been an absolute game changer. Can I put a woman up there? I
Yeah.
might put Sky Blue up there.
Huh.
Sky Blue, where is she now? She cut her teeth and became the wrestler she is because of CSW. So she could easily go up on that mountain too. Heather Reckless, there's another one. There's we're fortunate. We've had some really great people that have come through the doors. But I think those four, my original four, probably stand as a pretty good representation of my experience.
You know what? For fun, let's do a women's one too.
Oh, all women. Okay, why not? Well, Sky Blue is George
I believe.
Washington. There's no doubt about that. I put Missa Kate up there because Missa was the first ever women's champion. That's historic.
Hmm.
I think I would have to put Sierra up there because she held the women's championship for a long time. And then I would put Heather Reckless up there. So that's my four. But Maggie would be if I had I would probably make a five for the women because you can't deny what Maggie has meant to CSW of late. So there's four, and Maggie is an honorable mention. But you can't go wrong. We've had so many. While other people were just not understanding the importance of women's wrestling and how big it is and how good it can be, we have had a dynamic women's division for years. Dream Girl Ellie had come down the pike. Megan Bain, Ashley D'Amboise. We had
Shelly
Brickhouse.
Benson.
We had Shelly. I mean, I could put Shelly on the Mount Rushmore. I mean, Shelly was the fastest rising rookie I've ever seen go from being a non-wrestler to a champion in less than a year under the tutelage of Vic Capri. So, I mean, you could put her on the Mount Rushmore if you wanted to as well. I mean, she's everywhere now, so she's NWA now too. So who knows? Maybe Shelly is going to be the next one signed. You don't know. But I mean, we've had so many great female wrestlers. Megan Bain has been to watch her work as a visiting dignitary is something that I'll never forget because she made you sit in awe as she walked through that curtain. What she does at AEW right now, it's impressive. But my God, when you're that close to her, you want to talk about someone that looks like a god, that she's pretty darn godlike. So there are so many great ones, but great question. Great question indeed. Who's on your CSW or Mount Rushmore if I'm going to return the favor?
Mine's gonna be a little bit more recent because
Yeah, no,
I'm still
it's what you
learning,
know. It's what you know.
but I'm gonna because he brought me to CSW, made me aware of
Axel.
Axel Rico.
Well, I would put Axel up there. Why not?
Axel deserves it 100%. Steve Boz definitely has to be up there. Um,
The BOZ, not the Godfather.
Not the Godfather. The
Fuck that
BOZ is definitely
shit.
where it's
Pardon
at.
me. Pardon me. Sorry. Get a little excited when I talk about the made men.
So we got Steve Boz, we
Got
got Axel
Axel.
Rico, somebody who I think um their nickname doesn't suit them good enough is the diamond in the rough Quintero.
That is an excellent pick.
Phenomenal human being.
Or between Quintero and Iniestra,
Well,
uh,
he's my number four, is Inestra.
you've got a hell of a Mount Rushmore, especially for this era of CSW,
Yes.
because they are very important to the future. I'm not going to tell you what's going to happen, but if you think Quintero and Inestra on your Mount Rushmore, you wait and see what I got in store for you.
Okay. I'm excited. No, like I guess off record or off the taking kayfabe from it, Vic is one of the best human beings I've had the pleasure to like talk to and work with. Like I've had him on the podcast, and like while he's been injured, I've been able to have very good conversations with him, seeing him at CSW or AAW, even all the way out in Cleveland at Exodus Pro when Lily made her debut there. I talked to Victor for probably combined probably hour and a half just before
Wow.
and after the show. Great human being. And Quintero is another one of those guys. He's been giving me advice on like if I was to want to get in a ring and things like he's been trying to help maybe navigate the water, say, hey, maybe this is where you want to start. He I'd never met Hades in person. Like I've been aware of him. I was trying to get him on the podcast. And I was like, where is Hades? Quintero pointed me in the right direction, said, look, go over there and talk to him. Like, don't be shy. So those two and Axel. Axel he's the one guy I'll walk up to at a show and it's not a high five, it's not a handshake. He's like, come give me a hug. Thanks for coming. Would you like, would you not like? What can we work on? Things like and you don't how do I put this? Going to CSW, it's literally like a family. So like the Mount Rushmore could literally be any or all is honestly, and the crowd included. There's some fans that I go there and it's like straight conversations with them for way longer than you would expect. Especially just out of people that know each other from Franklin, like going to this building in Franklin Park. So like I can't say how much like uh honestly like I love Chicago style wrestling.
Well, listen, the way you just described it is exactly what we're looking for. It's exactly what we're trying to do. We want it to be a place where people can go to feel community, to feel safe, to have a good time, to feel like they're loved. No judgment. That's why, we don't care what your race, religion, creed, sexual orientation. When you come on a Friday night, you are amongst friends and family, and we're going to have a good time. And if you stay for the after party, everybody is approachable. Everybody will talk to everybody. And that's the way it should be. That's the whole point. If people weren't coming and paying for tickets and sitting and cheering and being energetic, we'd be running around in our underwear in a room for no purpose whatsoever. So the fans are the most important ingredient of this particular cocktail because without them, it means nothing. So the fact that we have a great fan base, the fact that you do feel like you feel about it, which that is a great testimony. If Hades does watch this, you will be his new favorite guy. Maybe you'll end up on commentary with me. Um, my point is that's exactly what he's trying to accomplish. So if he's gotten that through to you, he's doing what he wants to do, which is incredible. And as far as Inestra and Quintero go, and Axel, furthermore, you're surrounding yourself with some very, very good quality human beings. And that night in December when the injury happened and time seemed to stop, um, they kept commentary running, and I'm trying to describe what's happening as it's going on. Now, certainly, Inestra came out of it okay. He thumbs up. He was rolled out, and but I'm on commentary trying to figure out what I'm supposed to be saying, and I'm hearkening back to Jim Ross during the Blue Blazer incident because that's the only time I've ever seen a situation where there has been a stoppage of that kind of time.
Yeah.
And I'm not, he certainly didn't die, but we didn't know how bad he was hurt because nobody was telling us anything. So if you listen to that and they kept it on that show, they don't have a picture, but you can hear me trying to explain what's going on. that might be one of my proudest commentary moments because when I listened to myself doing that, I could hear the anxiety and the stress and the horror in my voice as I'm trying to keep everybody calm and what a moment in time it was. So thankful that he is well again and fighting. And what's going to happen coming up in April and May, stay tuned because I've got big plans for those two.
I'm excited. Excited. With that said, Steve, I want to say thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. If you ever want to come back on, I'll leave the door open. Door's wide
You
open.
ring the bell, you call me and you say, "Hey, come back," and I'll sit down and talk with you anytime you want. I'm happy to do it. This is what I love doing. We could talk for 2 hours about what's going on. I'll tell you everything you want to know. So anytime you want me back, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm not that hard to find.
Gotcha. With that said, Steve, I will leave this off at see you next time.
Have a great night, my friend.